Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. My name is Christina Cruz. I am the graduate assistant at the Office of Student Life and Leadership. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'll be leading this presentation today. Gleanne, my supervisor, is also in this room today, and she'll be monitoring the chat and can answer any questions that come up in the chat box as we go through the presentation. I just want to let you all know before we start, the session is being recorded. Today's topic is on leadership and expectations. This is the first collab of the school year, so thank you for joining us. And I'm excited to have conversations and be able to learn with you all. So before we get started, I want to share our office's mission statement and outcomes. So the Office of Student Life and Leadership provides support and fosters community engagement. We empower students through involvement, leadership, and co-curricular learning opportunities to enhance their time experience at CSUF. So through this, we hope and believe that students will be able to develop leadership skills related to their involvement within the organization, and that students will have a time experience related to their involvement with co-curricular opportunities at CSUF. Because we're in a virtual world, I want to give a quick introduction to everyone who makes up the Student Life and Leadership staff. We're a big team, but we have Elisa Flowers, who's our interim director of Student Life and Leadership. We also have Samuel Morales, who is the assistant director of Fraternity and Sorority Life. Jordan, who is the Fraternity and Sorority Life coordinator. Gleanne, who's in this room and is a student organization coordinator. Chopin, who is a sports life coordinator. Heidi, who is the community service and leadership programs coordinator. Ashley, our administrative support coordinator. Myself, the student organization graduate assistant. Isabella, Fraternity and Sorority Life. Vidi is our student org field trip grad assistant. Rihanna works at sports clubs, and she's also a grad student. Paola works with is working with TitanLink, and she's another grad assistant. We have Ali, who's our grad intern. We have Serena, who is our visual communication assistant. Jonathan, who's a student assistant, and Emily, who's another student assistant. I know it's a long intro, but I'm just trying to put these faces in the beginning of the school year, and hopefully you'll get to engage with some of these people. So Student Life and Leadership is broken up to, we oversee 6 different aspects. So that's campus activities, community service programs, clubs and organizations, fraternity and sorority life, leadership programs, and sports clubs. And so much before we get started, but I wanted to tell you all about LeadCon and some survey results we had, and these were some of the top concerns that organizations had for this upcoming year. So this includes maintaining engagement, member retention, member recruitment, and coordinating virtual events. So while the topics we're covering today are not necessarily related to these topics, I think setting expectations can help you maneuver all this. So that's engagement, retention, recruitment. If your team is all on the same page and has similar expectations, those are clear, it'll kind of coincide with some of this. And some learning goals that I have for you all throughout this presentation, and I hope we're able to leave with, is that you'll be able to identify at least 3 reasons setting expectations is important, and that you'll be able to actually apply some information you learned today within your own organization. The first question I have for you all is just, what are some ways you set expectations as student organization members? And again, feel free to use the text or web, and as you all respond, these responses will show up. Some are sharing clear communication about the needs of the group. Make sure that they volunteer at least 1 event per semester, code of conduct set with GPA, planning out plans for the semester and dividing jobs and tasks between our members. Those are all really great ways to set expectations. And I think you all are on a good track with how we can make this clear with our members. Planning, communication. So the next question is, why do we set expectations in our student organizations? So feel free to share why we should set them or why you do set them. So we can achieve our goals, events, and programs for the year, to hold people to a certain standard, to succeed, member retention, responsibility, everyone is in the know, and so that no one feels alone, to keep people engaged and feel connected, to achieve and succeed. Yeah. These are really, really great. Thank you for the responses. And again, these are similar topics we'll talk about in the upcoming slides. A productive organization, yes. What is the danger of not setting expectations early on? Stress management, not being on the same page. I think going back to the points that we had in the LeadCon survey, like member engagement, I think you all bring this up a lot. So it's important that we explore this. So thank you. And so now I kind of want to talk more about actually setting these expectations and some steps you all can take. And we will talk a little bit more about these in the upcoming slides. So the first one is to make them clear for yourself. I think sometimes we go into leadership role and we're like, okay, I have to set expectations, like I have to tell them something. But if you haven't actually sat and thought about like, well, what are these expectations and what am I really asking? You're also going to confuse your members. So you just need to make sure that you know what it is that you're asking and can clearly say this and also communicate this. The second one is to know where you need expectations. Number 2 is the one that we'll have a couple more slides on because I think this one's really important. So we'll talk about that more in a second. The third one is to understand why. Why is it that you're asking this? Why are these expectations important? Always remember why you're doing it. 4 is to meet and discuss. I think you all share this in some of our poll EV questions about making it mutual, making sure it's like something that everyone's aware of. That's really important because then you're not just throwing expectations at people, but you're discussing and talking about these expectations, which directly coincides to number 5 of making it mutual, making sure everyone is in agreement and everyone is on the same page. Number 6, to write them down somewhere. Now that we're in a virtual world, maybe your best place to write them down will be in like a shared Google Doc or whatever form you use to keep yourself organized, having it there. Number 7, to get the actual agreement and commitment. This doesn't need to be like a written agreement. This can be a verbal agreement. I know my previous organizations, it was always more of a verbal thing, but I do know some other organizations operate more on like formal agreements. Maybe you have like a signed contract everyone has to sign on these agreements. And lastly, I would encourage you all to always revisit these expectations. Don't just talk about them once and never revisit until there's a problem. Maybe this is something you do every month and a half. It's let's look at these expectations and make sure we're on the right track and holding ourselves accountable. So we'll go ahead and move to a little bit more about knowing where you need expectations. So the first piece is the work itself. I think this is really important because it's what is it that you're asking for in terms of like work? Do you expect, so I think that question underneath, what defines a successful completion of work? So is it this event really went really well and that's successful, like that's expectation I had? Or is it you've been engaging a lot on social media and our following went up? Things like that. Like what is it that you actually want them to complete and are the expectations clear there? The second one is the communication, and this, especially in a virtual world, is really big. So how are you all communicating? Are you doing this through email, through text, through video calls? How often do you communicate? Do you meet weekly? Do you meet bi-weekly, monthly? And this piece is really important, again, for this virtual world. You want to make sure these expectations of communication are really clear with your team so they know what you're expecting of them. The next piece is the time. We can talk about the response time specifically. So for example, when you're communicating through GroupMe, sometimes you ask for something and no response. Maybe everyone's busy. Have you had a conversation about, hey, we'd like a response within 24 hours, within 48 hours? Like, what is a reasonable response time? Especially now, you can't just like find someone on campus. You have to communicate with them. So making this clear, like how quickly is everyone willing to respond, and kind of making those expectations clear. And lastly, the culture. How are things done? And so this one, I like to go back to like that example I shared earlier about me being in a student org and having these board meetings. At the time, like the culture of those board meetings were very casual, nothing was structured. It was just like, we were there, we got things done. There was no like specific way to do it. And then the following year I actually became one of the presidents of the organization, and I kind of switched that up a lot. We made it very clear that, hey, during these meetings, we're going to talk about business. If you want side chat or like side combos, you can stay after the meeting and talk, just because we want to be mindful of time. And so throughout my last year when I served as president, like our meetings never went over an hour. And I remember being very proud of that because I was always really mindful of people's time. And so just that general culture, what is it that you want to, the tone you want to set with the organization. Now we're kind of just going to go back to some pieces that you all can utilize like after this. And so one of that is the path for presidents. This is found on TitanLink, and so this is for presidents and treasurers can use it. This can kind of help you like figure out like what are my own expectations, and it kind of guides you through this whole path of like leadership and setting expectations, different things you can do. I just want to share this resource with you all because you do have it available to you in TitanLink. And this kind of shows you a little bit more what it looks like. So only presidents and treasurers have access to this. So if you are the president or treasurer, you can use this. If not, maybe you can share this information. The benefits is that everything's in one place. Like if you're going to create your own individual like goals for success and organization goals and community, you can know where to reference it at. There's also different benchmarks and opportunities. So within there'll be like different events that you can attend that will suggest to you or like what's going on. So it's just helpful to stay engaged and like kind of up these skills. And lastly, this is important just because when it comes to Tuffy Awards, I know it's far away, but this is something we can utilize and like look at to figure out who was a student organization of the year. And I think again, we're virtual, so like having this to show for when it's time to have nominations and all that is really important. So just wanted to plug that. The other piece is just your TitanLink page for student organization officers. I'm sure a lot of you already utilize this and know about it. But just as a reminder, you have your roster so you can connect with all your student leaders and student org members. You can post your events. This piece of events I think is really important. TitanLink is a place, especially when we're talking about recruitment. Students looking to get involved sometimes will be guided to TitanLink. And so make sure you're posting your events there so they can kind of see like what's going on, different opportunities on campus. News, be sure to stay up with the news we post, but also if you have news you want to post on there that everyone can see, you're more than welcome to. And lastly, there's like a document section that you all can have for your own student organization and like put documents there. But I would also like to share that in Student Life and Leadership's page, there's a document section. And so like, for example, these slides will be on there in case you want to reference them later, or if you want to like use a slide to talk to your members. I think it's a good resource and tool to have. So I just want to make this known to you all. This is just a reminder, or not a reminder / announcement of upcoming collabs. So we have a couple more. So one in October on event planning, October 8th. All these collabs will be the second Thursday of each month at the same time, 2 to 3:30. In November, we'll talk about foundations of student org. In February, we'll talk about communication. In March, we'll talk about how to brag about yourself, which is more of like writing your resume and translating your student org experience onto a resume. And April 8th, which is one I highly recommend since we all kind of talked about in the beginning, is transitions, more so org transitions, making sure your org is ready to be like passed down if you are leaving. I do have a couple of like important dates and information I'd like to share with you all. So if you ever have questions about your org or something that's going on that maybe our office can help you with, you can feel free to email us, and it's on the website, or you can go to our office hours. They're virtual office hours. They're Tuesdays 9 to 10, Wednesdays 11 to 12, and Thursdays 3 to 4. There's infos on TitanLink, but also on our SL webpage, so you should be able to find it. I want to let you know that there's a couple Student Leadership Institute workshops coming up, one on Friday at 10 a.m. and another one next Tuesday, September 15th. There's a lot more. I just couldn't get them all on the slide, but if you go to like our TitanLink page, you can see all our upcoming events. I wanted to remind you all and let you all know there is a virtual resources article, and in that I have like ways to stay engaged throughout this virtual time, and it's constantly being updated. The link's not in here, but when I upload this on documents, I'll include that link so you have it, but you can look up like virtual engagement or virtual resources on our news and it should pop up. And lastly, I would like you all to know that you can get your org promoted through our Instagram. So this, you can org sorry, you can promote your events, your meetings, fundraisers, anything like that. We'll post on our Instagram story. You can use the hashtag CSUForgs in the caption, and then we will go ahead and repost this. Just make sure you do it Monday before 11 a.m. because we'll be posting that afternoon. And the only requirement to do this is that you are a registered organization and that you follow us on Instagram, which is CSUF SLO.